Thank you very much. All right, so let's see the people coming in here. Hi, Sang-woo.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Sang-woo, how's the weather in Berlin?
No, Munich. Dull,
Munich, sorry.
rainy, sad.
Okay.
Essentially, yeah. But there's supposed to be like a weekend of summer coming up with 27 degrees this weekend. So hard to imagine when you look outside now, like 10, 12 degrees and rain. Hope for the best.
Okay, let's see about that. Fantastic.
Okay.
Hi, Katja. Good to have you.
Oh, hello. Guys,
Hi.
if you can, anybody joining in the beginning, if you can open your webcams, we'd be glad to see you, at least to get some feeling that it's not just a bunch of names on a screen.
Okay.
Exactly.
I also encourage my colleagues when we're in Zoom calls and Skypes, because they always want to keep their webcam off, and I'm always like, turn it on. I want to see your faces. with an adjective that I cannot say now.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, sometimes it's difficult, and actually you don't always feel like showing your face and your background and everything, but you in the world of Zoom you just have to come over it.
But in reality, you have no choice. If you need people, they need to see you. I mean,
right? That's different.
Yeah.
By the way, while we're waiting, yesterday you asked for Corona jokes, and I was trying so hard to find one, and I couldn't find any until the evening, and then someone told me a nice one, and
Go for it.
and it's to avoid COVID, you have to eat a lot of garlic. Wow. Does this kill the coronavirus? No, it doesn't kill the coronavirus, but it helps with social distancing.
Definitely.
it's true. We do practice that in Romania, but it doesn't seem to help though.
Yeah. It helps.
Is everything when it comes to this company. This is an incredibly hard product to make. It's
super incredible hard.
We're in a sales call right now.
Yeah.
I thought Mark was trying to tell us his favorite COVID joke as well, but didn't sound like it, unfortunately. Hey, Claudia. Hello. Good to have you again.
Hi.
Jeta, tell us the Romanian COVID joke, because we just hinted to it yesterday, and it's quite good.
With so many people now?
Yes, sure. I mean, this is the perfect time.
Yeah, so I guess I can tell that because I'm Romanian, so no one will be upset about it, but it goes like this. There's a Romanian COVID strain, and you know you have it because the symptoms are you don't feel like working and you'd like to drink something.
That's definitely long COVID or endless COVID, right?
Yeah.
Good advertising, huh?
Yeah. Well, yes, for a holiday destination, that sounds fantastic. All right, we have people jumping in one after the other. This is fantastic. Hi, Diane. Good to have you.
Everybody.
Hey.
Hi, Yun. We have Henning. We have Eva, Susanna. Oh, wow, it's filling up. Hi, Margit. She's actually next door to me, just not in my office, based on COVID.
Yeah.
Are you you're in the office, Mike?
Yes, I'm in the office today. Doesn't happen too often these days. All righty. So yeah, yesterday we actually unfortunately had a small technical challenge, and we were not able to let everyone in who actually tried to, based on some Zoom complications. We checked that, so we should be fine. And as I see the numbers going up every second practically. So yeah, that looks That looks more promising. So yeah, we were actually capped at 100 yesterday, which was really a shame because we had, I think, 4 times the registrations or something of that number. So that was a shame.
We apologize to any of you guys that tried to get in yesterday, and hopefully you forgive us and you come in today. If we hope we did not lose you forever, though.
Yeah, and I hope you can actually hear us because you're here today. All right. Yeah, so let's give this an easy start again. And I might do so by, first of all, again, saying hello and good afternoon. It's my pleasure. My name is Mike Berger, part of the ICMA board, and it's my pleasure to do the moderation for this ICMA best practice and online marketplace conference. Sorry for that. Again, unfortunately, it's only a Zoom meeting, but nevertheless, we want to make it worthwhile, and we have been actually getting some fantastic feedback about these formats, despite the fact that we cannot, unfortunately, spend more time together in an informal way afterwards. But actually we can, and we even try to do this, and this is something we would like to invite you to just stay on today and to be with us also in, let me say, an informal format after the official part of the conference has ended, to just stick around a little bit and have a chat.
Hello.
Hello, hi, Alberto. So,
sí, dame un segundo.
So we want to, as much as possible, also keep this informal setup as much as we can alive. So yeah, on the behalf of the board of directors of the ICMA, it's my pleasure to welcome you. Just to take a short glimpse at the current board of directors of the ICMA. So we have Samu with us again, our current chairman, who is also CEO of Doctare Group. We have Joonas with us, Director of Jobs at Schibsted Finland. And of course, also Lucian Luncan, our actually former chairman of the ICMA board, who's managing director and also based in Romania. Yeah, so what's on the program for today? How are we planning to go forward? Well, we will have David Gill as our first speaker this afternoon, who's CPO at Schibsted, and I will speak some more about him and his talk in a few minutes. He will be then followed by Mayank Yadav, who's the product manager out of Palo Alto, California at Facebook, and who's going to be telling us about his journey and learnings of building the global marketplace for Facebook. Super exciting and super cool to have him with us. Unfortunately, Werner Steng cannot be with us today due to some health issues, and we wish him all the best from this point. And he promised that he will be with us next time. We just took the opportunity and thought, it's never a bad thing if the European Commission owes us marketplaces something. So at least a talk on our next conference. But maybe even more. So let's see about that one. No, so it's of course not great news, but we wish him all the best and that he will be with us on the next conference. So how will we be spending the time? Well, we will definitely not just end the conference early, but what we will do, and that's actually something that we love to do at our physical conferences, which is to do a lot of informal know-how exchange. So what we will do later on together with all of you is we will dive deeper to discuss and to exchange on a couple of key questions in a kind of a round table format, inviting all of you guys to discuss with us. So it will be about what have been your main learnings and successes, and maybe also failures and fuck-ups, so to speak, sorry for my French, during the COVID times, and what have you learned, what's coming up, what would you like to share, how has your first quarter gone in this year. And so we would like to take the opportunity to use this extra time that we have been given to discuss with all of you and to open it up for a lively discussion. So it won't be Werner Steng, but it will be a fantastic exchange session, which is actually one of the main reasons why people actually come to ICMA conferences, as we have learned, doing our conference surveys at the end and asking people, what did you enjoy most? And a part of of course, high quality speakers, it was always that point that actually made people come back to the next conference. So it's fantastic that we will have plenty of time to do this. So before we start with David, let me just give you a short review of what we heard yesterday. And we had a really fantastic talk from Diane. And thank you one more time for being with us. And she has shared with us a lot of really fantastic insights of how Rome, so the Ringier group in Africa, has been doing. And just to remind you, we're showing here one of the key slides that Diane was actually sharing with us. And if you didn't have the chance to join us yesterday, then just feel free, go to the ICMA website and check out yesterday's recording. So you will be able to access all those talks that we had yesterday, as well as the one that we have today. We were then, after Diane had the pleasure to have Marta Della Torre with us, who is the CEO and founder of El Clasificado, and she was telling us actually a super impressive story on how El Clasificado was able to turn the curse of having a global pandemic into a blessing for themselves and having 25% of growth by simply giving away free marketing and advertising services to more than 1,000 struggling small businesses in California and the broader region. Super fantastic insight, and especially what was interesting for me was that Marta simply told us how those small steps, those everyday improvements, can actually really take you places, and that has been super interesting. And I can only encourage you to go and check out her full talk if you weren't there yesterday. And then we were pretty much finishing it off with Stefano from Bacheca, who had a super interesting talk about the implementation of a payment and delivery service that, unlike many other of those services, included also an inspection part to ensure quality. And that was super interesting. And we had a lot of questions, and unfortunately didn't have the time to follow through with all of those questions. But Stefano, I think, is here with us today as well. At least I saw him earlier. So if you have additional questions, maybe to him today, we probably can fit one or two of them in. So that was a short recap of what we were looking at yesterday and what we were hearing. Super interesting. Thank you very much. And now it's time for us to move forward and thank you very much, Jeddah. And this also reminds me to actually thank Jeddah again for running the show for us. Jeddah, who has been with us for many years and who's the good soul behind ICMA and all of these events. So just to encourage you, as we will be going through those talks, please just interrupt. You can either just unmute yourself and ask a question at any point in time, or use the chat function. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on that. And if you post a question in there, we will also be trying to get the answer back to you. But now it's time for David. David Gill, CPO at Schibsted Marketplaces Finland, and actually David and I go back quite a while. So we have actually also been working together operationally a little bit when David was actually still with Adevinta, and he's been with Schibsted Adevinta for more than 10 years, working in Sweden, Mexico, Spain, and Finland. And what I didn't know, what he wrote me in his introductionary notes, was that before he started his real career, he actually founded an escort community at the age of 15, which put him in position to travel the world, kind of startup. And that's David, if we have time, you have to tell us a little bit more about this. But your actual speech is going to be about OKRs, is that right?
Correct, Mike. That's correct. Yes. Hello, everyone. Let me see if I trying to get the slides to work. I think we should be up and running, right?
Yes, looks good. Looks good.
Okay.
So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, so hello everyone, and thanks a lot for the intro, Mike. Let's see now if without the commissioner, I might be able to talk about the esports video games history a bit, but let's start with OKRs. So that's the topic of choice today, and OKRs is kind of a buzzword, one could say. It's been around fairly long, like more than a decade, and it's been as many things, it started gaining traction and popularity in Silicon Valley and the tech companies there. But now, you see OKRs and the OKR thinking almost everywhere you look in companies like ours. And what I wanted to share with you today is a few lessons that we've done trying to implement this in Finland, because what I've learned now is that getting started with OKRs, that's pretty easy, but it is really hard to get it to work well. So that is a little bit the topic. I hope this might be interesting regardless of your experience with OKRs. I hope it will be interesting both for the ones of you who barely knows what it is, or maybe might sitting now actually saying, what does OKR stand for? I think if you're curious about it, if you're thinking about implementing it, or maybe if you're actually being in the journey of trying to implement it, I hope you can appreciate it. Or if you've actually been through this journey successfully, well then, by the way, first I would like you then to reach out and tell me what you learned, but I hope this presentation can be interesting also for you. So we start our journey up north. I am working for Schibsted, which is an old company. Actually, we started out in the mid 19th century, but has since, I would say, the 2000s been one of the pioneers, a strong word, but I feel pretty proud of what Schibsted has accomplished, especially not only in the media business. We come from a media heritage and newspaper heritage, but also within online marketplaces. And this story started around the 2000s, early 2000s, where Schibsted, that was basically a Norwegian company at that point, Norwegian active mostly in Norway, when the newspapers in Schibsted, they decided that they saw this thing called internet growing in importance. And what they decided to do was that they actually cannibalized one of their most important revenue lines, which was the classifieds. And they put that online, and they put that online on a site called Finn. So Finn is Norwegian for to find, essentially. And that's kind of where the Schibsted marketplace story started. And that is a story that has been now going 20 years strong. It's seen the birth not only of the Nordic perspective, but also the growth and the spin-off of the international marketplaces in what is today Adevinta. And Adevinta is a company that many of you might know is now about to become the #1 marketplace globally, marketplace operator globally through the acquisition and merger with the eBay Classified Group. But so we're here in the Nordics. Trivia or kind of fun fact: Nordics and Scandinavia. What's the difference? Well, the Nordics include Iceland, which is actually not on this picture, but it's up here to the northwest. It includes Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. And sometimes you might hear about Scandinavia. Well, Scandinavia is those same countries minus Finland. And since Finland is an important part of Schibsted Nordic marketplaces, that's the name we have. And we've been fortunate, and through hard work and strong brands, we've been able to capture quite attractive positions in the Nordics. Some numbers here. And this story about OKRs that we're going through today, it actually takes place in Finland. So what happened in Finland was that some of you might know the leading horizontal there, which is Tori. And Tori has been around for 10 years and has now grown into the solid #1 marketplace in Finland. But what happened less than a year ago was that Tori or Schibsted acquired a marketplace called Oikotie from the Sanoma Media Group. And Oikotie, which is Finnish for shortcut. Oikotie is essentially two marketplaces. It has a strong jobs marketplace. Joonas, who is on the board of ICMA, he's leading up that, and there's also a real estate component. And we thought that this is just a perfect fit to combine the horizontal and maybe primarily generalist and motor strength of Tori with these specialized strong marketplaces that is Oikotie. And this was a deal that made a lot of sense, but took place in a somewhat complicated environment, right? And the environment was complicated. Well, as we all know, we're now summer of 2020. This is peak pandemic uncertainty, almost. We have luckily come far since then, but the pandemic uncertainty posed, of course, challenges not only on the commercial side, but it also have a strong impact on people. There is uncertainty, there is worry, there is in worst cases sickness that makes the operating room of a company a bit difficult. And I'm sure you were all going through something quite similar. So the pandemic uncertainty, that was an important aspect here. And another aspect was that the marketplace industry is kind of hitting the next S-curve. We went from newspaper to desktop internet, and then we went from desktop internet to mobile, and within the marketplaces and classifieds, I believe we're now hitting yet another S-curve, and that is should we call it the next generation of the transactional marketplaces, where we're moving more and more from the traditional classified matchmaker into full-fledged end-to-end marketplaces, both in all the categories. And this is actually something that Resources yesterday, Stefano talking about it, and their experimentation with transactions. And this, of course, means that we will need to change our products substantially. We will actually need to, if not reinvent ourselves, but certainly put a big emphasis on shaping and improving our product experiences. So we have a big task ahead of us. And the third kind of external factor, that is that we're now in this war for talent. And what I mean with this is that in order to achieve these massive improvements, we need to make sure that the people we have in the company and the new people we need to hire, we need to be an attractive employer for them. We need to be a place where they feel that they can grow and where they are not given tasks to execute, but problems to solve. We hear that a lot. And this is also true for the talent in Finland. So that was kind of the external environment. And then on the internal side, of course, this was a massive acquisition, a big merger. There's big expectation from Schibsted for us to turn this into something much more valuable even than the separate companies were before. So we set new strategies for our different verticals. And of course, internally, this is also when you merge two companies into one, we were very keen on making it so that it wasn't one company swallowing the other, but we're actually setting up a new organization that consists of two different companies. And this has big implications on the values. So we had to define what are the values that we want to have in this company and what is the culture that we want to establish, right? And all of this happening from these little screens in the video call, right? This is all happening, this merger of two companies, setting up a new culture, operating in this kind of somewhat challenging and uncertain environment. It's happening online, it's happening remotely. And what we realized was that, this is an opportunity for us to think about a way of working, an operating model for us as a company that both leverages the strengths that we have, but that is also resilient and future-proof, right? Considering these external and internal challenges that we were in. And that is where this concept of OKRs and this way of empowering teams, which is an important concept, comes in. And this is actually also where my journey with the company starts. So I have, as Mike mentioned, I've been quite fortunate to have been able to see many different. I've been in Schibsted and Adevinta for my entire career. Not talking about the video game story, but officially, on the LinkedIn, I've been in Adevinta and the Schibsted system for more than a decade, right? And I've had the fortune to see very different environments, and through this journey you see both things that work well and things that don't, and been both working operationally in the marketplaces, but also in the Adevinta global teams. And we were part of setting up Adevinta as a company, which was a fantastic experience, right? But now, since October last year, I've come in as the Chief Product Officer for Schibsted Marketplaces Finland, and this is kind of where this journey starts. And today, I will be talking a little bit about the learnings that we've been done trying to implement OKR successfully in Schibsted Marketplaces Finland. But I do want to acknowledge that, this is really, and this you guys know as leaders, when we talk about frameworks, toolkits, and these kind of things, it's not about picking that particular model that will work perfectly for you, out of the box, but it is really about cherry picking and putting something together that works for you, your context and your culture, right? So if you find that the things that I talk about today are interesting, I really want to, acknowledge that these are our learnings from the journey, but the theory and the concepts, much smarter people than I have come up with. And you can actually go to this slide and click on the links afterwards if you feel interested, and you will be able to read from some of the strongest people that are, have been working with many companies in making these kind of agile transformations, working with OKRs and really kind of getting this empowered teams concepts right. But anyways, so I just wanted to acknowledge them. OKRs. So OKRs, objectives and key results. I did a Google search and I saw that there's 21,600,000 hits for OKRs. And that led me to believe that it's a fair assumption that the audience of today's talk, they will have heard this before. So this will not be a chat going into deep detail about exactly how to write the perfect OKR. We will focus more about the implementation side of things and maybe the leadership aspect of it. And I hope that is helpful. There's a lot of different tools and articles and reading to be done about OKRs, but essentially in itself, it's just a goal setting mechanism. It's a way to express and articulate a goal. You set an ambitious qualitative goal that you want to achieve, and you complement it with a few key results, a few metrics that determine quite crisply what value you want to move from where to what. So OKRs, that is not, it's not going to be an OKR 101 course, but maybe what I can say, and this is a slide that I've been using internally when we talk about OKRs and why it's maybe more than just a goal setting technique. And that is that I'd like to think about, the work that we do in marketplaces, be it, commercial, or if it's about product development or marketing or whatever it is that we do. I mean, one way of understanding OKRs and why it's kind of hard to get right, that is to kind of look at, the difference between, on the one hand, inputs, outputs, and outcomes. So inputs, this is, we can think of it as the insights about, where we as humans, we look for insight about where to go, what problems to solve, what is it that, what is the information and signals that informs us about what is, relevant to focus on. And here you have, you have the strategy, you have maybe customer feedback, you have web analytics data, you have user research, market trends. This is all the signals that you use to understand what is the right decision, what is the right priority for your business and for your users. And then, of course, what we do with this is that we build stuff. This tends to be the fun part, especially for people that are, creative and like to make things happen, basically. And these are the, you make plans and specifications, you give maybe presentations, you build features, you put your components or solutions or projects, marketing campaigns. I mean, this is the stuff that is built or delivered, something that you can kind of check off that you did, right? And the thing with OKRs is that both the inputs and the outputs, they are secondary, right? It's all about the results that we manage to achieve by doing these activities, right? And these results can be anything from, user engagement, revenue, market share. Usually it tends to be a bit more granular, right? You might want to make it a bit more detailed so that, it's actionable for a team to work on, right? But I think that this might sound, right. And so what, of course, right? But I think that the important thing to understand here is that when we put the focus on the outcomes, which is really the only thing that matters, we make this huge shift from looking at success, not based on what we did and how busy we were and how many things we delivered, but to what we actually achieved, right? And this might come, in certain leadership teams, we're used to working at, the overarching business KPIs, and this might feel common and comfortable for us. But at least in my experience, like some of the most talented teams I worked with, they were still stuck in this output mechanism. We launched a feature, we built this thing, we did a rebranding, we modernized the tech stack, we launched this feature. And I think that here really what we need to do is to kind of empower the teams, but also challenge the teams that all of those things are all well and good, but it doesn't matter in itself. That is not what success looks like. Success looks like, you know, defining and nailing those outcomes, right? And this also has another significant implication, and that is that we go from thinking about work as a waterfall process with a clear beginning and a clear end. It becomes a bit more fluffy and uncertain, right? Because all of a sudden, you're not done when you ship the feature. You're done when you're achieving the outcome that you wanted to do. And the probability of you getting it right the first time you launch the first iteration, the first version of that product, is quite low. So you're many times going to have to iterate and improve and test and tweak and sometimes scrap it entirely before you can actually claim to have achieved the outcome you want, right? And this has a very important implication both for the teams and for the leaders. And we'll see a little bit more about that in just a bit. So this is really about outcomes and instead of outputs. And now, actually, and I'm happy, it wasn't until a few minutes in that the first microphone interruption came. So I was just reminding everyone that please mute your microphone. Unless you want to chip in with a question or comment, you're very welcome to do so. So I wanted to, and I should also be humble here and say that we're kind of in a process. I can tell you already now that kind of making a transformation to successfully employ OKRs and have a culture where you have empowered teams, that is if not a multi-quarter, but even a multi-year effort, right? So we're still in our journey. We're still figuring out stuff that is not working. We're figuring out a few things that work as well. And what I wanted to do today is to share with you the kind of 3 important learnings that I've made that can hopefully be relevant or inspiring or it's just maybe clarifying for you guys. And the first one is really that when we talk about OKRs, like I kind of alluded to before, it's not only about writing a nicely worded goal, right? It's really about fitting the OKRs into the big picture of your company and your business. So let's start there. And for this, I want to kind of refer to another presentation, another format, and this is by a man called Martin Eriksson. He's the founder of Mind the Product, which is an organization that promotes excellence in product development. And he has put together a framework. I believe it's coming out as a book soon, unless it already haven't, which is called the decision stack. And the decision stack is basically a way of ensuring that you create a coherency between the different kind of levels of your organization. And I'm not talking about the hierarchical level, although there might be a relationship there, but I'm really talking about this clarity and the kind of line of sight between, on the one hand, the vision that you're trying to accomplish as a business, down to your strategy that kind of expresses how you're going to achieve that vision, down to the objectives, and then further down to the opportunities or the initiatives that you work with. And my point here, and what I want to kind of emphasize on this slide, is that it's so important that when you either yourself or your teams embark on writing these OKRs and trying to express their priorities and focus areas for the coming quarter, or whatever time period you want to use, but a quarter tends to be a pretty good amount of time. You want to make sure that the point is not if the OKR is perfectly written, if it follows by the book necessarily. The important thing is that these OKRs are aligned with what you're trying to achieve as a company, and that you as leaders in the leadership team, you have the same perception of what success looks like as the teams defining and executing those OKRs. And one way of trying to achieve this is that you really need to map and make it easy for everyone in the organization to understand how the OKRs or the objectives that they're working on, how that maps up to the big picture. And the next slide is just a simple visualization on how you can accomplish this. So this is an example, an internal example from System Marketplaces Finland, right? If we start at the top, we start with the purpose. What is it that we're trying to achieve, right? Which is to empower people to make smart choices. That is our purpose in the company, right? And then of course we've also articulated different marketplace strategies, right? They are both, which has both commercial objectives, as you well know, but also the typical growth and engagement objectives, like traffic and audience growth, content, liquidity, and all of these things. And these strategies tends to be different for every marketplace, right? We have some for the motor vertical, we have some for real estate and jobs and the generalist, right? And with these two overarching pieces, that's when we in the leadership team, we start by writing our Schibsted Marketplace Finland's OKR. So we define what are the objectives, what are the key results that we want to achieve in 2021. So it starts there. And that is then given to the teams together with a pretty extensive context setting as to how we came up with these OKRs, right? We reconnect to the purpose, we remind everyone about the strategy, and then that leads down to the OKRs that we've defined as a company. And what we do then is that we ask these teams, or squads as we call them, to define that if you as a squad, this is the key result we would like you to focus on. And it could be something, improve efficiency for car dealers, or, grow audience in real estate, or what have you. And then given that kind of macro key result, the team then gets to work. Then they are asked, okay, what is it that we can do in order to support that overarching key result? What are the OKRs that our team should have? Right, and they enter into a process of defining, what are the objectives and key results, and these tends to be a bit more granular, right? Because these high-level marketplace OKRs, we know that there's seldomly just one or two drivers. There's many things that influences how a high-level marketplace OKR or key result moves, and it many times require multiple teams to, in different ways contribute to that same overarching objective. So they do their own OKRs, and that's when you get down a little bit down into, detail. Maybe they want to, it's not only about, increasing leads. It might be increasing leads for a certain customer type on a certain platform, for example, if it's on the apps or web or what have you. And then based on these OKRs, they define the initiatives. That's when the funny thing starts. That's when, that's what most people love, features, you go and interview users, you build prototypes, you set up experiments and you build solutions, right? But the important thing here is that these activities of building features or having your roadmap is a consequence of all the rationale and thinking that went into defining the OKRs. So you set objectives first, and then you get into the fun part of building solutions. And that is something that I've seen many times before. And it's kind of a pitfall that you're falling in love with a solution and you say, hey, this feature is going to be amazing. And then in hindsight, in afterward, then you kind of write, okay, what are the key KPIs and metrics that this one solves? Let's check if it moved in the needle, right? And that is kind of the wrong thinking. Then you start with the output and then the outcomes. But here, it's really flipping those things around. And the beautiful thing with this is that if you make sure that this shared context and understanding how these things relate to each other, you can actually make it so that, and even in an individual, Jira ticket that a developer or a marketing specialist is working on, you should be able to track what that individual item and task, how that relates not only to the team OKRs, but to the overarching company OKRs, to the overarching strategy and to the purpose. And creating that line of sight is something that I think this is kind of a prerequisite for helping the teams make the right decisions, right? They need to have that context in order to make the correct decisions. Right, and that actually leads us into the second lesson, and that is that, implementing OKRs and trying to, get empowered teams in place, this is really about developing not only the goal setting system, but it's really also about developing the leaders and teams. Okay, and again, this is another fellow Swede. I don't know. It's. I didn't have an intention to add many Swedes here, but they seem to have done some good thinking. And this is from Henrik Nyberg, who has been instrumental. He's one of the most, to me at least, inspiring agile coaches and thinkers about how modern teams, achieve great things. And he's been involved in Spotify, Lego. He's currently working at Mojang, and he's also been a consultant. And he's drawn this matrix, 2x2 matrix that I really enjoy. And I think it explains pretty well what the role of on the one hand, leadership and the teams need to be for this system to work. And that is that you have on the one hand alignment, you want alignment. You need to feel that we're all pulling in the same direction, where we've heard the same story and we're going in the same direction together. So you want to have high alignment. But of course, what you don't want either is to have low autonomy, where you basically have teams that are not, trusted to solve the most important problems and to figure out themselves. Because at the end of the day, they're closest to the users, they're closest to to the customers, they are the most likely ones to figure out what is the best solution for our users and customer. So you want them to have high autonomy. You want them to have freedom to discover and try and experiment on the solutions that they believe will impact your OKRs. So the sweet spot is really where you can combine the high alignment with the high autonomy, right? So you do not want, of course, you don't want the old command and control kind of waterfall style where, the manager says, we need to cross the river and this is how you do it. This is how it's going to look, and I want it done by then, right? Like that is an unrealistic and not very modern way of looking at modern marketplace development. But you also don't want this situation where you have these empowered teams, but that are just running in circles. They are not aligned with the overall strategy. They are not seeing how their work fits into the wider strategy and the purpose of the company. So you really want to kind of find that sweet spot between high alignment and high autonomy. And this is something that isn't easy because it requires a fundamental, in some cases, and certainly a little bit in our journey as well, and I've seen it in other organizations as well, that the role of the manager changes, right? The role of the manager is much more about providing context rather than controlling, right? And this particular slide I think is more than 10 years old, but it's to me it still holds up. And this is from Netflix and their culture deck, and they talk about the role of managers to provide the insight and understanding to enable teams to make the right decision, right? And that doesn't mean walk out of the room and be invisible. On the contrary, this many times require very active storytelling, coaching, strong involvement with the teams to provide them with the right environment and the right context to make the best decisions, right? And this is something that I can't like overestimate the importance of this point, because if you're trying to apply OKRs, or somehow believing that a more kind of traditional command and control structure is not going to be successful, or at least you're not going to reap the benefits of kind of focus and innovation that OKRs aspire to bring, right? And here I also want to mention that while I have an important role in our company, it really starts at the top here. A few things just have to be top down, and this kind of mindset and alignment with how we work and kind of how we look at team leadership and overall leadership has to start in the top. So your CEO, or if that's yourself, you need to be the first one that buys into this and believes in this and stands behind this. And I would say that we're on a good path in Finland. I mean, as I said, we still have things to improve, but the fact that our CEO, Jussi, is actually, championing this way of working and ready to invest the time and ready to, coach and spend time on getting this system to work is really essential, right? So, and this also goes for anyone trying to attempt this, because it is really not a goal-setting thing; it's a cultural thing, getting OKRs right. Another observation that I've done and a learning, and that is that, sometimes, and I personally come from, a product and technology background, right? That I've been, analyst and then a product manager, and then I had the product, and now I have the current position. But it is something that is one of the main kind of eureka moment for me was that, because I've seen both systems when the organization was almost like split in half, right? You had the product managers and the engineers and the UXers, and they had read these old blog articles about OKRs, and they really thought that this is the way to build modern products, and they were inspired, and they spent so much time on aligning and doing their OKRs and whatnot. And then you had the other side of the organization, which is of course equally important, the business development, the marketing, the customer support, the sales, but they had a completely different way of measuring goals. They measured it in another way, and the fact that if you then have these kind of misaligned or different ways of looking at success, one half of the organization, they might have the shiniest, nicest OKRs in the world, unless that is aligned with the entire company and everyone is really in this mindset and in this way of working, it's not going to work, right? Of course, some functions are better suited to use OKRs than others. And I'm not saying that, we should financial planning, it might be hard to apply OKR strictly there, but at least kind of buying into this overall view of, yes, we measure our success as a company through our OKRs. And it is really a team sport, and it's not only for product and technology. That was the second learning. The third learning, and something that is, that was just sound effects, checking that you're all there. The third learning is about transparency and drumbeats, because another pitfall that I've experienced myself and been responsible of, that was to, again, getting started with OKRs, that's easy. Getting it to work, that's hard. And you get together, you plan, you align, you think, what are good goals? What is it that we need to focus on? Do we have the buy-in? Have we aligned? Have we gotten all the different people in the room to stand behind this? Yes. And you spend, a week or two to get these OKRs in place. And then the quarter starts. And then after 2 months, you say, right, those OKRs, have anybody looked at them recently? And it's like, yeah, right, let's go back and look at them. And that's really what this last lesson is about. And that is the kind of the transparency and even more important, the drumbeat. And this picture is actually from a consultancy called Axio Global, that's both other internships that has been working with the CEO and founder, Jonathan. And basically, and he has helped us a lot on this journey. And something that he says that I think holds very true is that if you want to kill this way of working and the successful application of OKRs and empowered teams, is very easy. You just stop the drumbeat. You kill the drumbeat. That's everything dies with that, right? Because there is while this methodology is a lot about autonomy and getting people to work and pull in the same direction, it is also about establishing a new habit. It's about getting those routines in place that will feel awkward in the beginning, right? But it's to make sure that every quarter, every month, every week, we follow that same check-in and definition cycle and rhythm. And this is hard, right? This is very hard to kind of have that organizational stamina to make sure that, every Monday, we go through the OKRs together. We talk about them, what is blocking us, is there anything that the leadership team can do to unblock the teams? What's their confidence? Should we change our plans? What have we learned from last week? Like, those conversations need to happen every week. There's no, and we call them the weekly Gemba walks, which is a fun word. It's basically a 15-minute meeting where the leadership team is every team in the company, and we go over, their OKRs and see how they're doing. And it's not a reporting inspection exercise, but the leadership team is there to ask, what's your confidence and how can we help to make sure that you continue with good progress? That is the role of the leadership team in those meetings. And that also instills that rhythm and habits, right? And the first few weeks, the first few months, the first few quarters, it's going to feel a bit awkward, right? But that creates this kind of heartbeat and predictability in the organization that this is our operating model. And as we know, successful habits require that kind of routine, right? That's the thing with habits, right? It's something that you do it so many times until it becomes almost second nature. And the way you work with OKRs and the way you work with kind of, with empowered teams is really about this. Right. And then another thing is that transparency is extremely important. So here there's a few redactions, but this is literally screenshots from the teams, the tools that we use, right? And this is going to be different in all of your companies, right? Some use Teams, some use the Microsoft suite. In Schibsted we use G Suite and Slack. And the thing is that you don't need any fancy software or some complicated new tools that you use. This is literally spreadsheets and Slack channels, right? And the trick here is that you make sure that everything defaults to transparency, defaults to open. That means that every document that gets created, you're creating it visible for everyone in the organization. Every team channel, you open it for everyone so that everyone can participate and understand what this progress that's being done. And as we said, also this drumbeat, right? Like this kind of continuity of, every Monday morning we have these check-ins and yeah, it is really the hard part again is not writing the OKRs or getting the software to work, right? We've all gotten very well used to this over the last year, but it's really the habit and the kind of principles and mindset behind. And that was it. So these are kind of the 3 learnings that we made to date. Maybe there will be a, you know, a 4th, 5th, and the 6th one in a year. I certainly feel that this is really about a continuous learning journey that we're on, and it's something where we will, you know, it's really about trying to get, you know, can we get 1% better every week? That is how we're going to see the results of this transformation. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. This is really a, you know, to use a worn out cliche, right? This is not a sprint, this is a marathon, right? And just to summarize a little bit quickly, you know, what I've been talking about today, and things that I really encourage you to keep in mind if you or your organization is trying to accomplish something similar, you know, having a bit more focus, outcome-based culture, and you know, empowering the teams to do this, is that, you know, start by, you need to connect the OKRs to the company vision and the strategy. You know, we need to have that clear line of sight between why do we exist to what is this Jira ticket that I'm working on, right? I also think it's important to say that this is not a tooling thing or a goal-setting framework thing. This is a culture change, and you need to be quite explicit. This is something that we've learned as well. We need to be explicit that now things are changing, right? Now we are going to work in a different way. Now we're going to value success in a different way, and we're going to empower teams in a different way. And this needs to be done for your entire culture, but also with individuals and with managers. And that is not to be underestimated. Every manager should be an ambassador for this way of working, and that means, you know, having those conversations also with them. Another thing that I could recommend is that, you know, we have 15 teams working within this system, right? And a simple trick here, common in change management, is of course pilot with a strong team. Pick your strongest team and say, hey guys, why don't we try this the next quarter, right? Like let's try to do these OKRs, and let's try to do this kind of check-in, and let's think of us as leaders in a different way. And if you can get that to work, you're going to have a lot easier time to implement this with the rest of the company. Because saying that, hey, they do it like this in Google, or like we might be heard from the other presenter from Facebook, you know, it doesn't necessarily help a team that is, you know, in their context, in their reality, to hear that they're doing something in a different way in another company, right? But if you can point to an internal team and say, hey, these guys are really happy with this change, and they actually feel that they have more impact and they're more engaged in this way of working, you know, you can get that effect happening across the board. Again, you also need to establish a routine, you know, create this kind of drumbeat in the organization if you want, and get those habits in place, no excuses. I also, you know, this is not something that, you know, you put on the agenda in the leadership team on a offsite and then you never come back to it. This requires work. This requires time, patience, resilience, and kind of what I've been living through, you know, over the last few months is it does actually get harder before it gets easier. But that's usually what progress looks like. And then on things that you might want to avoid is, again, don't, you know, this is not a product and tech thing. This is an organizational thing. So make sure that whatever you're trying to accomplish, you do it across the board in the organization. Also, you should not think that just because we talk about empowered teams, autonomous teams, that they are given a problem, that they come up with a solution on, that doesn't mean hands-off leadership. On the contrary, in order to make this transformation a success, you really need to be good at coaching, supporting, and helping the teams through this change, right? Because it can sometimes be a big change. You should also avoid thinking that every team needs the same kind of support, right? Because in any organization, you're probably going to have differences in maturity and experience between the different teams, right? So you need to encourage them to themselves through retrospectives and whatnot, figure out what is it that they need to get better at. 4, again, we said it, one way to kill all of this is just to stop having this, kill the drumbeat, you know, stop the rhythm. If it doesn't feel like a routine, if it's not something you come back to on a recurring basis, you know, it's not going to work. And lastly, this is all about being agile and lean. And agile and lean is about the continuous improvement. It's not going from 1 to 100 overnight. It's that continuous reflection, improvement over time, over week, over a month, over quarters that might feel small in the given week. But when you compound the effect of working in a better way just by 1% every week, that actually results in something quite powerful after just a few quarters and years. And that's it. That's all I have. I might have gone over a little bit on time, but since we had time for, or we had a bit more space in the agenda, I hope I'll be forgiven. Super keen to hear your take on this. Either questions to me or maybe your own reflections about, have you been through something similar? What have you learned, etc. And with that, I invite you all to, chip in, share your questions and thoughts.
Thank you very much, David. Fantastic talk. Let's open it up for a few questions and then have the main Q&A session after our next talk, just in order to stray from our time too much, because I know that our next guest, Mayank, has a hard stop at 5:30, so we'll keep the Q&A part a little bit shorter than usual. But we do have, of course, time for one or two of the most pressing questions. So please go ahead, jump in.
I have one question.
Shoot.
First of all, thanks, David, for an excellent presentation. I'm wondering how you are doing the weekly 15-minute, how you are structuring that, because I looked in there, I saw the Sherpa and whatever you call the teams and the squads and whatnot, but I'm interested how actually you structure those.
Yes, great question. And it's also something where first of all, it can be a little bit of a logistical challenge, especially since you have a lot of these meetings happening on Mondays. But basically, it's a 15-minute slot where all of the teams in that particular squad connects, and you bring up the OKR wall. You just share that on video, and you have the two management team members or the Sherpas. And basically, what has happened just before this meeting is that they filled out the numbers from last week, right? They filled out for each of the key results. They filled out the number, what was the results on this particular metric from last week. And maybe more importantly, they color code it. Is their confidence green, meaning that they believe that at the end of the quarter, if we just continue with the plan we have, we're going to hit it? Sure, that's kind of the least complicated, because then it's just thumbs up, awesome, continue the good work. Or is it orange, meaning that, we need to have a discussion about what changes do we need to do in the plan? What are the things that we need to adjust in order to actually reach the target? Or red, feeling that, this looks grim. We tried a lot of things, but we're not seeing the needed move for this specific result. And 15 minutes sounds short, and it is short, but the trick here is to just focus on the colors, right? So if things are green, if the team feels that our confidence of reaching this is good, then there's not much we can do as management team and Sherpas, right? But if it's orange and red, that tends to trigger the interesting discussions. Okay, what are you thinking about this week? What could we try instead? What did you learn from last week that we can apply and do differently going forward? And most importantly, is there anything that the leadership team can help with? And we try to cap it to that kind of 15-minute length, because it keeps it pretty swift and fast, and we've seen it work pretty well. But of course, we're iterating on that concept. So yeah, thanks for the question, Lucian.
Super interesting.
Thank you very much. I can say we are using the same methodology actually in Willhaben. I may be able to talk about this for a couple of minutes later on. And I can say that, yes, it's not an easy thing, but if it works, it works. If it starts to work, it really yields a lot of value, and has actually also even helped us to keep also Willhaben a great place to work, because it's very valued by the employees, because it simply sets the tone of the day-to-day work, and makes strategy much more in the center of things, and not just something that is done once a year, but it's actually becomes a guiding thing for the everyday work. So it's super powerful. I can only relate to that quite a bit. So thank you very much, David, for now. We'll come back to you later in just a little bit. And I would now like to hand it over to Mayank from Facebook, who's joining us actually, I think, from Menlo Park today, I guess. So from California, and he's going to be talking about the 5 lessons about building a global marketplace, which is of course super interesting for our audience. And just a few words maybe about Mayank before we hit it off with his talk. So Mayank is part of the Facebook product team that is building a global marketplace platform. And before that, he has, or actually he has been specializing in marketplaces and two-sided markets for a long time. And he's not only worked at Facebook, but previously was also part of Uber as well as eBay, and did also some startup work for advertising startups on a global basis. So we're more than happy, Mayank, to have you here with us this afternoon. So thank you very much already now in advance, so to speak, and we're super happy to hear your talk now. So please go ahead, take the floor.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Awesome. Thank you. I think, David, that was a great talk. Thank you so much for all the frameworks. Lovely. I think I'll follow David now with tactical insights about how to build and scale marketplaces, from high-level strategy to going into some tactical ways of operationalizing them. Awesome. Thank you for the intro. I'm Mayank. I'm a product manager, lead at Facebook. I run I'm in part of the shops team, the Facebook commerce team, and prior to that, I've built different new verticals, 0 to 1 verticals, like for homes. You guys are aware of it, home rentals. We are a global product now, live in about 10 markets. So we'll share some learnings from there, how we went from 1 market to suddenly 11 markets in a very short time. I did cars, buying and selling used cars. You guys are very aware of it. I mean, in terms of the business globally, especially David, Shipster is pretty big in classified space. And yeah, prior to Facebook, I've been working on Uber, Handy, home marketplace for home services, eBay, classic, the e-commerce play that they had back then. So I've got the opportunity to really understand and build these marketplaces. But as David mentioned, if you go back a little bit, I want to make sure we anchor on the realities of where we come from, and then talk about the ideas that we have now and how they've evolved. These are all marketplaces that we call the classic marketplaces, one, the brick and mortar, and of course, the classifieds business that Shipstead amazingly owned in many parts of the world, and then you apply technology as well to really increase efficiencies. And I think what has happened is with the evolution, as we were talking earlier today, there has been improvement in efficiencies. So every layer that we add in technology to these marketplaces, we get a new output. With eBay, it was more secured way of transacting, more efficient way of transacting. With Zillow came a new experience for homes, if you see it, which was never there before, to browse homes from your couch. With Open Door now, you can actually buy it. So you're moving towards transaction. So adding every layer of technology created efficiency, and will continue to do so. And I think we are a part of the journey, all of us together here. My discussion today would be about when we really think about marketplaces, let's make sure we are very clear with the 3 components. I'll share that quickly, and then jump into my 5 learnings that I have found very interesting in scaling early stage products from 0 to 1. And some might apply to also late stage products, but primarily focusing on the 0 to 1 in an organization where the impact has to be big, and not for every startup, I would say. So let's say mid-size and large companies, if you had to start a 0 to 1 product, these learnings could be interesting. Okay, to start with, my slides are not as pretty as David's, but sure. 3 key components. We all know about this. A marketplace, what does it do? We have demand, we have people, we have buyers, and we connect them with sellers, that is supply, renters, car owners, car dealerships, companies looking to hire people. And then there's a platform in between that we are all building to really connect them together. So the foundation is that. So if you think of teams, that generally starts from these 3 pillars, and then they span out like a tree, as roots of a tree. So when we make decisions, I always ask this question in a room: is it a supply problem? Is it a platform problem? Is it a demand problem? And that gives me a perspective, where are we in terms of the discussion? Because when people come with discussions, they come from all perspectives. So putting a framework to thinking process helps in really identifying the problem and then go deep into it. And so goes with our learnings. Okay, so now we're clear with the components. We all know about that. I'll talk about the 5 learnings that I've had in building and scaling these marketplaces. The first is, when we are working on building these marketplace products, we really need to focus on a playbook, because it never stops with launching one city. It never stops with launching one vertical. It never stops launching in one country if you're running a global business. So creating a playbook which can be replicated again and again and again is what makes a company very agile and also deterministic, that yes, you can deliver. So if you go back like a little bit to history, Uber has nailed the concept of launching a country. It's not easy. You can't go from 20 cities to 100 cities in a span of 2 or 2.5 years' time. And it's an operations business that's going that fast. I mean, you have to go and onboard drivers. They have a strong playbook. Amazon has a playbook of betting on new products and making sure they become successful. So if you read their quarterly results, it's one of the most world's bizarre reports with few numbers at the top and rest are all bets. Try it today. Go back and read the report and compare with any other company. I read every quarter. It's only about their bets. Why? Because they have a playbook. From a product and leadership perspective, they can actually execute on those bets in 5, 6, 10 years' time. But if I go there as my own company and make a bet and say raise money, I can't. I don't have the playbook. So there's a lot of value in creating a playbook of success. So I'll talk about building a playbook for verticals that we have done, or I have done in for one of the startups I'm advising. So I think OKRs are really cool. We should focus on them. And I think it's this also uses part of OKRs in the framework, but it's a little bit separate from that. So for instance, you're a brand new product and you're supposed to launch something. What's your OKR? I mean, what's your really the metric you're focusing? And the challenge happens when you're actually launching it. People want you to show great numbers, but the reality is the numbers don't come for a long time. And then there's a expectation misalignment between the leader sitting here saying, well, I gave you $1 million to get us $10 million in the next 2 years, but you're still launching and learning, like what's going on? And this milestone driven playbook approach bridges the gaps and brings them together. So what it does is it upfront sets expectation. Listen, it's a multi-step journey. Launching a product is step one. And what does launching mean? Well, we'll take a hypothesis and then we'll go and launch this product, the solution, and see if it works. This is the OKR for does it work? So definition of does it work or not? That could be 6 months time. Good. Every, to David's point, every cadence, or whether it's weekly or let's say quarterly or monthly, you come back and talk about that specific piece, that is launching, and have we unlearned anything about the hypothesis, not about the metric. If we don't do that, everyone talks about the metric, which is again not important at this stage. It could be a proxy metric, which would be have you launched in one neighborhood or whatever it is. Okay, that's number one. So the point here is the milestone-driven approach is very important for 0 to 1. Break it down. Launch is a good one. Then once you have launched, the shiny star is gone. You got the PR. But what's next? Again, same question, leadership. Where is the number? Where's the money? Where's the money? But there's no money yet. There are multiple steps before that. And in a mature leadership setup, the next question people ask is, do you have now product market fit? A product working for 10 people does not mean you have product market fit. But to get to product market fit, there's another journey. There's a journey of another 6 months, or I don't know, 8 months, depending upon what you're working on. And what we have seen is in the past, it is getting traction, which means get enough people, get even enough demand, enough supply to play the game of product market fit. So then the OKRs change. And then we talk about not launching, not PMF, let's get those people. And let's have that liquidity in the marketplace. Again, in the context of our marketplace, it could be demand, supply, and maybe if it's three-sided like a delivery model, you need demand, supply, and riders or couriers or whatever it is. Once you have that check, the team has now moved 2 steps forward without talking about transactions or growth numbers, which is absolutely amazing. It doesn't happen in many companies, trust me. Then comes product market fit. What is the value of the product? What are you defining as the value to the buyers, to the sellers, to whoever is concerned? And of course, I'll talk about that as an example, but then we focus on the real thing, which could be number of leads sent, the quality of leads sent, if it's classified model, or number of transactions, if you're focusing on that, number of hires, if there's number of, if it's jobs as a vertical. And once you hit that product market fit, or buyer retention could be one of them, or seller retention could be another one of them, or seller churn rate could be a guardrail, and so on and so forth. Once you hit that, then you talk about growth. So having this playbook, and if the teams have shown that they can build this playbook for one vertical, we can replicate this again and again and again. So quick example that I moved to my next learning. So example, this is a startup I advised in India. They do social commerce, a very hard space. This is like hard to understand what social commerce is. So they pick a hypothesis that we'll focus on one feature or one problem, which is the hypothesis was team buying, by the way, sorry, team buying will unlock social commerce in smaller cities in India because they are price conscious. So if you buy together as a concept, we can unlock social commerce in tier 2 cities. Good hypothesis. So team built a feature, which was allow people to build a shared cart, some feature, some solution. Ideas can come from everywhere. So they did that. And they tested the hypothesis, and they saw that yes, it was working. People were actually adding it to cart. They were doing transactions. So the MVP worked with some people. Awesome. But these are only school students they were testing with. Why? Because they were school students, school as in college students, and it worked. Now we give them feedback, like focus on scale now, so that we can figure out, does it work at, does this product work? Does it have PMF at scale? So then they enter the get traction phase, and then they make a exit criteria, an OKR for that. If we have 100 items supply with 10 buildings, that is their definition of small geography, we have enough buyers to play the game of product market fit. So they acquired items, they acquired and made associations with those buildings, did their marketing and made sure those buildings would buy from, or apartments would buy from them, or come and interact with the platform. So awesome, their demand, supply, and products. Then came product market fit. Now they focused on how do we engage with these buyers and these products to have at least 1,000 transactions with some repeat rate or retention rate. That became their OKR. They hit that, and they raise a round. I mean, you'll see that news coming out very soon. And now they're focusing on growth into new neighborhoods, and then new cities. And then, of course, I don't know what to do after that. It could be new verticals or new countries. So I think the TLD, the summary is we're launching 0 to 1. Metrics are very cool, but having a playbook based on milestones really help us set the context right and gives a frame of reference to leadership to measure success, which may not always be a metric and could be something that actually matters for the product / business. Cool. Okay, I'll move on and interrupt me. Like, let's make it interactive. If possible, interrupt me. I can answer questions at that time. I'll keep going quickly. Create focus. I think David also mentioned in his talk, create focus. Imagine you're one of the pods in his tree that was created. And you're told to go and really build something, and the OKR is clear. But then the OKR was, this is an example from building the home rentals marketplace for Facebook. So our goal was, let's make it easy for people on Facebook to find a home. That's our mandate, objective that we have, right? The objective function we're talking about. But as a team, how do you execute? It is by creating focus. And we figured out, we can't do everything. Even if you're Facebook or you're a large platform, you can't serve every customer. So we built our framework or our own dimensions that we use to make a decision here. Where should we focus within that rental space, home rent, not Airbnb, but long-term rental space? And we had opportunity size, how many transactions happen. We didn't care about money yet. We're more about, let's make more homes filled up through Facebook or more connections through Facebook. So opportunity, room share is pretty interesting, 10%, single family homes was another one. And then there was the large family or the large apartments. Where can we solve what is the biggest pain point in this industry today? And if you see, room sharing is, I mean, if you are in this business, like room sharing is really, really hard and nobody cares about it, to be honest. Very few companies care about it because there's no money involved. The money is all with the large apartment companies. So anyway, from pain point perspective, room share is super fragmented and nobody has solved it the right way at scale. Somebody's done that at small city level or town level. And then where can Facebook play really a good, like what's the strength? And we saw that groups were very local groups where people are sharing and talking about a whole room share, and also single family homes, because these are again not with one company, not owning the whole thing. It's like owner or an agent doing it by themselves. So we found out that this was our sweet spot. that if we actually help people within Facebook do room share better and help family homes being listed better and found better, we can really win. And that's how we created focus for the team, that we will say no to, in the near term, no to the large apartment buildings to start with, only go deep into room share and single family homes and talk about success from that perspective. And that helped us going deep in that market and really deliver a product that works for them. So all the features you might see if it's available in your country are focused around these two use cases. So the learning here is creating focus is step 2 after objective. And there should be a lot of understanding work that should go into creating focus versus saying, let's build for all, because we can never build for all to start with. Cool. Third lesson is very similar to the second one. It's as leaders set the objective, I would say the second layer or third layer of mid management is very excited to go execute on that. Let's go build, let's go do something, let's go act on it. This bias for action. This is more about taking a step back and saying, let's pause and understand what is the problem we're solving. How is the ecosystem designed if it's a marketplace? So when we were supposed to do the home rentals marketplace for Facebook, when I was brought in to do that, I didn't understand the rental space. I didn't understand the real estate business. And of course, many of us don't understand those businesses, and that's okay. And that's like, we have to just bring structure to it as leaders and move it forward. So what we did was we first outlined the entire ecosystem in front of us. Okay, what is the ecosystem from a supply perspective? Where is the biggest pain point? Where can we solve the problem? There's not segmentation of users, but segmentation of supply. Does supply also have a problem which we can solve for? Maybe not. Then we shouldn't solve this problem. We should just get away. And that helped us give a perspective to it. So if you are in the business, you'll know that there's obviously homeowners and apartment companies, 2 big types of inventory or homes. And then there are multiple layers in between. There's direct listing, there is websites that companies have, large companies have, there are agents who are doing it. And then there's a very sweet spot, nice spot of SaaS companies doing property management. They're doing really, really well. And then there are aggregators like us, like Shipstead, like Zoopla, like Zillow, like any of those. Understanding this ecosystem helped us figure out where is the best place to show value and create value. And also there's a function of quality. As you go up towards the source, the quality increases, but it becomes harder to acquire inventory. So the moment we have this understanding of the ecosystem, whichever ecosystem you're working with, whether it's a grocery delivery or it could be jobs ecosystem or whatever it is, this is very important for a leader to understand and have in front of them. So when you make decisions, it's very clear what is compromised or where the value is not created. So again, third learning was ecosystem learning is super important. If you don't have this mapping for your product or business, I think we'll be playing in dark and just trying things that we think could work, but may not work. So again, same insight, understand, but from a supply perspective. Okay, I'll talk about lesson 4. We're doing good on time. Cool, awesome. Expand or not expand? Yeah. A very common question that comes when we discuss marketplaces. When I'm advising startups in some parts of the country, they feel very cool. Oh, we have hit product market fit. Should we launch new cities or new countries if they are like really crazy ambitious or new verticals? Oh, my grocery business works. Should I go into office supplies? Our jobs is working. Should we go launch homes? I mean, if it's in the cities where we don't have this much of a system. It's a very interesting question. I'll give you an example of where and how this mattered. This is data from Google. I just pulled it up from there. The real answer is, I mean, we all know, depth is more important than breadth. Winning in a market is super important for a marketplace like a two-sided marketplace because that gives you the power to dominate the marketplace. Okay, I'll quickly give an example of on the right side first. No, let's do the left side first. So Uber. If you look at Uber, it just shows red everywhere. Why is that? Sorry. It shows red everywhere. That's because there's less supply. So it's possible Uber was not focusing on San Francisco at that time. The supply was less and they're focusing more on growing supply in New York City. and a competitor came, and then it had same supplies present in San Francisco, and it gets split between two competitors or three competitors. When that happens, you lose the depth in the marketplace from a supply perspective, which means you will not be able to provide the experience you want to provide to your users, which means the buyers, riders will not see cars on your platform. Hence, it'll slowly start disintegrating. So again, on an ongoing basis, depth is very, very, very important. It gives you the power to create barrier for other players to enter. And second, it gives you the power to create more liquidity from demand supply perspective, which can thrive and keep move forward. Look at the right side. The right side is a meal delivery service. And the point I'm trying to make here is of DoorDash, the blue bars. If you look at the blue bars, look at the last one. San Francisco, 75%. So when DoorDash started the journey, it's a food delivery, meal delivery service in the US. If you don't know about them, it's clearly they are the leaders in San Francisco. And this data is from 2021. If you go back a little bit, it'll be even crazier. Now they have 75% market share in San Francisco. Why is that? Because that's exactly what they did. They are a San Francisco-based company, and they realized we will win San Francisco first, no matter what. And since they have launched, nobody has been able to dethrone them, because the restaurants, they were approached with DoorDash. They have onboarded on DoorDash app. The users are now used to DoorDash as a brand. And hence that liquidity of demand supply so deep in that city, it's very, very hard to dethrone them from that perspective. Now, look at other markets. What they did was, they did not say, I will go and win New York City. Let Grubhub play their game. They picked other markets, Phoenix, Atlanta, Philadelphia. So you put a map in front of you and say, where are the competitors weak, and can we go deep and create a penetration from a supply perspective and bring all the supply to a platform? Demand will come. Demand can happen. Demand happens. Traffic is not hard to generate if you have money. You can throw money, promos, they come on. Supply is very expensive and very hard. So all the cities you see on the bottom are not New York cities of the world. They started from the ones where the big players were weak, and they built a very strong hold from a supply perspective, and then kept moving forward. This is why they're not number one in New York, because that was not the strategy. The strategy was, let's go where Grubhub is not there. Then comes Uber Eats. Well, Uber Eats is not winning anywhere. If you see the entire red piece, they cannot win anywhere, because as I said, going deep is super important, right? It's very hard to dethrone. So what do? They say, well, we have to acquire some company or keep bleeding money. That's when they acquire Postmates, and now they have a substantial piece of the market from the top markets perspective. Anyway, so focusing on depth is important. Going wide is once you've won a market or number two in a market, then go wide makes more sense. Okay, last topic, last learning, and then open to question quickly. Product now. I'm a product manager. I build products. This is important to me. Building a global product. So what does it mean, building a global product? I think the point here I'm trying to make is, when a company starts, they all start with one city, one vertical, one country. And yes, you have the milestone-driven approach to win that vertical, win that city, win that country. But not every product can be a global product. It's very difficult, because you're building it for one specific country. It's very hard technically just extend it to, let's say, from US to go to Europe. You need payment system, you need translation, you need taxation, you need the stack, or the technology stack has to extend. So how do you think about product strategy from the beginning, or when you're at the mid stage, when you want to scale, you can scale? I think a good example is, again, I'll go with Uber and then talk about Thumbtack a little bit. The real one-liner here we use is, wherever possible, let's push the teams to build frameworks and not one-off features. One-off features are very easy. You can just build it for one specific use case. For instance, for Uber, to give an example of how it operates. If you look at Uber, on the left side, you have Uber Paris, a screenshot from Paris. So you have Uber Pop, a different kind of service, select in black. And on the right side, you have the one from Prague, somewhat similar with different currency. Okay, they're the same one. Okay, anyway, the idea was Uber Paris will have a different UI than Uber New York, where you don't have pop, you have Uber Lux, Uber Black, and taxi, a yellow taxi. Now, if you go back to Uber and look at the product, the way it's designed, you need very less engineering work to turn on a new country, which means the operations team can go to a screen, say, I want to launch Paris. I want to have this kind of car. Here's the logo of that car. Here are the number of drivers I need in that city for that amount of time for launch. And let's turn on their onboarding process, submit. And that turns on a city for them. It's not that simple, but it's close to what I'm saying, which means the framework they have created is not for one city, it's for another, for multiple cities they can scale to. So they started with the thinking that it will not be a one-off product, it will be a product that can actually scale. And it's not a lot of engineering costs when you think about frameworks. It's just we have to put effort into making the product modular. So as we think about scaling, we can add modules on top of it, which can be reused in other markets. Let me give you an example of a lead gen website, Thumbtack in the US. They had done the similar thing for different verticals. So if you go and book a cleaner, so what it does is it's the same product, but it turns up, it opens a different set of fields for a cleaner versus for a plumber, versus for a handyman, versus for a car driver. So same product can be scaled to multiple verticals in this case. Now, again, it's not a lot of eng work to think about it. It's just that when we build this, the focus should be, let's build frameworks that can scale into multiple verticals or countries versus focusing just on one-off use case, which is the focus at that moment. So I think as leaders, we had to have the foresight of thinking about product frameworks or scale in future that we know about and share that with the team so that they understand how to build that for scalability versus just for today. All right, right on time for 5 minutes questions. So lessons, create a playbook. It'll help you to really scale for success and be more deterministic as a team. Create focus for demand for users when the market is big, helps in showing real impact with a real segment versus the entire big space, which may not be important for you. Understand the ecosystem is super important. Otherwise, as leaders, we don't know, we're playing in dark. Focus on market depth as a marketplace. That helps you winning, not the breadth. Breadth happens after the depth is won. What is the definition of how deep? Top 3 is awesome. So if you're top 3, you're killing it. And the last one is build frameworks, not one-off features. This should be a mandate rather than it's a principle to David's framework of OKRs and objectives. A principle should be let's build frameworks, not features. When we think about product building, that'll help teams scale quickly when the time is right. Okay, I'll pause here for questions, but that's all I had.
Thank you, Mayank. Super interesting. So let's open it up for questions right away to use the time that we have with you. So let me maybe start with a question. What is actually the role or importance of marketplaces for Facebook? So how does Facebook perceive its marketplaces part?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think everything Facebook does is based on what we observe on the platform and make it better. That's the whole idea. And if you think about 5 years ago, if you go to groups, I have seen groups that are 100,000 people, like a New York City group or a New Delhi group. I was traveling the world when I was doing this rentals product to understand the different nuances. And you'll see people are actually sharing homes and they're sharing cars they want to rent out or they want to sell out on Facebook. And what Marketplace did was just said, okay, let us give them this better experience with a home within Facebook where people can actually do this with ease, because this needs more experience. It needs filters, it needs pricing search, because from a buyer perspective, it's very hard to parse out from the groups on if you want to look at all the homes available. So what we did was we took that experience, we took that problem and the opportunity which was happening already and gave it a home within Marketplace and said, well, let's go deep now and build experience here and provide more homes and cars and other inventory to different people. So it's easier for them to browse items from other people or small business and help them connect with them in the process. Then later they can buy if they want to. I think it started with that, and that's been the focus. Whatever is happening, make it better and marketplace is a solution to the group's evolution that we have seen within Facebook.
I get it. I get it. So enough from my side. Questions from the audience, please use your chats.
I see Antoine raising hand. Antoine.
Yes. Hi, Young. Happy to hear you again. So I have the impression that the international deployment of Facebook Marketplace is slowing a little bit down on the automobile market and is stopped on the real estate transactions sales. So can you give me your point of view about this?
Yeah, I mean, we just released our numbers last week about the growth of Marketplace. Marketplace now is we have about 1 billion people visiting Marketplace every month. It was shared by Mark, I think, recently. So I think the investment is not stopping on overall Marketplace. There could be some specifics on homes and cars. I don't lead that anymore. I'm on shops, the commerce side of it. But in general, Marketplace is a pretty big story for Facebook, and we have been investing in it overall. And the numbers show those.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Ryan, can I also ask you a question?
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for the presentation. I would be curious how you guys at Facebook define liquidity in a particular vertical. I don't know, real estate or whichever you would think stuff. Yeah. How do you guys define liquidity?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Let's make it Facebook agnostic, because then I can be honest about how I think versus Facebook. See, generally, what does liquidity mean for us? It's a ratio between demand and supply. It's not just supply; it's the ratio between demand and supply. And for that, if you look at a vertical like homes, let's say you launch something in Boston, or Munich. Let's take a European example, Munich. If you launch in Munich city a homes product, whether it's for home rentals, full-time, long-term, or Airbnb, the reality is the one thing that will attract people to come to your platform is the selection of products. And what we have seen from other marketplaces in the past, if you don't have at least 50% market inventory, you can never get enough number of users coming to your platform. So we started with that hype, with that assumption that we at least need 50% inventory in a small segment, whether it is, Munich city, whether it is in an apparel segment, whether it is toys segment. So then you have the supply very clear, 50% of the inventory in that segment for that specific constraint that you've created for yourself. On demand side, you do want to make sure you have some ratio like that. So we focus on what is the utilization of inventory. And then we figure out, we can look at the demand required in that city. So if Munich has 1 million people looking for homes every month, if you have 30% of them coming to your platform, you will say that, compared to the leading platform has, let's say, 50% going to the leading platform. And if you get 30% of that, 30% on your platform, which is total, you are half the size of the biggest player, it means that ratio of 50% total inventory and being half the size of the biggest player from demand perspective gives you a good liquidity to play the game of product market fit. Now that's for Facebook because we're very large. We can think from that perspective. But for a small company, I would think from that same angle, but reduce the denominator to even smaller, not Munich, but let's say a smaller neighborhood, but same proportion, 50% in that neighborhood and 30% of the number one player's demand. And that helps you create the real balance between demand supply and play the game.
Thank you.
Cool.
Further questions?
Yes, Mayank, as you were mentioning Munich a few times, here I am. I'm based in Munich and joining this conference from Munich, but question is not about Munich anymore, but still interesting, super insight. Thank you. Where do you see the future? And can you share a bit about what let's say the product roadmap is going to look like, and maybe you can give us a sneak peek about what's coming. Thank you.
Oh, you mean Facebook's roadmap?
Yeah. On
Oh, no.
Sure.
I can't share that. I mean, that's obviously, you'll see as public articles come out on what we are doing. But in general, I think as we've been talking, the focus is always on building for connecting people. So any use case that we see which helps connecting more people, whether it's through commerce, through helping people finding a home or car or apparels or anything that we're doing on watching together as a video, Facebook will keep in, I mean, it's public information. I'm trying to say, like, I can't share a real roadmap, but I think the principle is very clear. Wherever you can add value in connecting people, as a platform now, we can see new ideas everywhere on the platform emerging. Let's go invest there and make it better. And we saw that also with donations, where we have opened a platform to collect money for charities, and that's doing quite well. So I think the principle is very clear: connect people. Now the context can change if you slice it by context based on where we see the biggest opportunity to create value and go there and really build product experiences, technology globally again. Not just in one market. That's why we are different. And I think the global part is more exciting when I go to work every day. I would say that when you think about a problem, it's not just one problem. Like we launched home rentals in 11 countries, I think, in a span of a year and a half or 2 years' time. I was traveling every part of the world. That is exciting.
De la política partidaria en el manejo de la pandemia.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you.
Sorry, Maya, can you hear me? This is Susanna speaking. Susanna Ersoy.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you, by the way, for all this. It was really, really useful. I just want to, Facebook or not, I actually don't want to talk about Facebook, but your personal assessment at all. Yeah. Your personal vision of where trust in the marketplace, like what is the role, maybe the future, where you see that? I'm involved in a lot of this, both like, business, government, a lot of discussion going on that. So I really would like to take your point.
Totally. And it's my point of view, not Facebook's point of view. Yes, absolutely. I think we all agree here. That's the foundation of a marketplace. And the reason trust did not come in the beginning, like the way it did today, is the evolution was Amazon.coms of the world, the Lazadas of the world. These are all e-commerce websites where you buy from a trusted brand or a store, where trust is important, but well, it's implicit that you trust a Chanel or a Gap or whatever. The trust challenge happens when we talk about the left. So left side is transactions, which is clear, e-commerce, and the right side is free flow marketplace, like the classifieds world, where we are talking about cars, and that's where trust becomes very, very, very important. And the bigger efforts we put there, the better it is. So now let me give you a perspective on what I have on trust there. Trust is critical. You cannot scale a marketplace like home services, like cleaners, plumbers, etc., with no trust. So when I was working for Handy, trust was the only thing that we focused on for a long time. And the CEO has written an article where that's the baseline of starting the product after supply and demand. So there are two types of trust, right? One is the reactive trust methods where things have gone wrong and then you solve it. Well, I think that's okay. That has to happen. But proactive trust can be done in many ways. And that's where we'll see innovations happening. We'll see, I don't know about what's going on, but we'll see a way of democratizing the concept of profiles, of having some sort of a passport that says you are trusted. With Handy, we were doing background checks for people, for every person coming to the platform. And we were making sure that that was done through a third party, which was actually verifying those. So that's another way of trusting people. But I also feel the new generation trust is also democratized, which is reviews and ratings. And that's where you will see restaurants building their own trust ecosystem or currency through ratings and reviews. So I think there'll be two layers of trust. One will be system enforced, other will be democratization of trust, and third would be implicit. So as we move on, we'll see a combination of both, but there will be innovations where my right will move towards the left, where buying and selling car will not be between two people having offline. It'll be verticalized by a platform like Kazoo or by Vroom, where you just you skip everything and you just buy it from one trusted product, which is room. So you just go tell them, you know them, fully insured, everything, but that'll not scale. So I think there'll be two world evolving slowly. One is the 3-point system I gave you, and the integration that will slowly move forward. Okay, I have a hard stop in 1 minute. The hard stop is because I've dropped my daughter to the daycare. I'll take one question from Joonas, because he's been raising hand for a long time.
Thank you. Very nice, and I'll try to be short. Do you have any personal insights of the new normal in classifieds? What will be on the rise? What will be like going out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's think it out together. I think we all have seen two concepts, right? One is, as I mentioned, the left, my right, which is classifieds, free flow, lead generation model, and transaction model. The lead generation model will move towards transaction. It'll be a very, 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 very slow movement, and not the whole world will move there. A part of the world can move there because the long tail will still remain long tail. So one is that movement, and we'll see it everywhere. That's one. The second, I would say the trend I'm observing is hyper verticalization of different marketplaces. So for instance, let's take an example of jobs. What is the hardest problem for you to find a person to work right now? Is the quality of the work is not, so it's very subjective. So there are companies that are just doing high-tech software engineers just for building end-to-end projects in 2 months. This whole 2 months and high-tech means they have just 100 people they will offer you, but absolutely high quality. That's hyper verticalization of one vertical called jobs. Same thing is happening with, let's say cars. We are just, with, the ride sharing industry. There is one company that is doing premium private jet planes for high net worth individuals. That's definitely a big market. We had never thought about that. So I think we'll see this new niches coming out from somewhere, which is there today in the big vertical space, and that I would call it hyper verticalization. That's the second trend you'll see emerging. If you have an idea about that, okay, I'll give you one more example. I was in a chat with a few startups in India. This startup is doing vertical marketplace for surgical equipment. So if you are a small doctor, shop, and you want to get surgical equipments, this marketplace gets you at a very cheap cost. I never thought of a surgical equipment marketplace. So I think you'll see these things emerging that are a little more deeper in the ecosystem of creating efficiencies, but they'll be smaller markets, not $1 billion, but still very big.
Mayank, may I ask you one last question just to follow up all of that?
Okay, cool.
That it should be deep, not necessarily breadth accounts. So can horizontals, as we classically know them, can they actually survive?
100%. They are in a position. I mean, where is David? He's not here. I should chat with David.
No, he's here. He's here.
He's here. Hi, David. I think 100%. I mean, the horizontal players have the power to go vertical from day zero. Think about the path. They already have, so okay, let me put it this way. A large platform, the way to think about strategy with them is what's happening organically and how can I make it better? If you think lead gen will last forever, that is not true. And for a horizontal player, you are already seeing high organic activity and figuring out which one is the most important, figuring out which is the highest pain point, figuring out which has more potential to grow, and then build a vertical or a better experience for them is verticalization. I mean, that's exactly what Zillow is doing with Zillow Offers. Though they learned from, what's a company called Open Door, but that's exactly what they're doing. And they are in a good position to do it because they do have demand, they do have supply, they do have the power to do it. So does horizontal players. Absolutely, yes.
Super, fantastic. Mayank, we don't want to keep you longer in order not to, have your kids.
Gosh, things. Yeah.
So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you, and I hope we can have you back soon. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Great chat, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All right, fantastic. Wow, this has been exciting and packed, and I'm almost glad that we had one speaker less, to be honest, today, because we have been getting so much out of two speakers today that we barely could have actually fit our third guest. But let's now jump over to the third and last part of today, or more or less our last part of today, which would be a roundtable with inviting all of you guys now to share your experience. And we will actually be hitting off this session now with a short poll, because we would like to get your opinion and your, kind of a vibe of how you guys have been doing with your businesses out there. So we would like to ask you to quickly answer the question that was shown to you. So how was the Q1 of 2021 compared to last year's Q1? How has your company been doing? And we don't need all the specifics. We want just a general impression. So are you doing worse, the same, or better than last year? So please just give us your opinion here, and then let's see how this plays out. And that should just give us a little bit of a barometer on how the marketplaces, at least in this group, have been doing. So the results will be displayed on your screen in just a couple of seconds. Any last taken bets? How this is going to go?
I say better.
Yeah. I was just going to point it to you. Lucian, you're normally perfect at guessing those results. So let's see.
I don't know. I say better, but maybe I'm overly optimistic.
Let's see about that. So Jella, do we already have a result? Yes, there we go. Look at that. So we have 56% of respondents in this group who are saying that they're better off than last year. That is a fantastic starting point. So maybe let me hand it over, Lucian, to well, I guess you had a reason for being optimistic. How has your Q1 been?
It has been much better than I budgeted it, for sure. Because I was very pessimistic about Q1. I actually budgeted it as a very bad quarter. I was expecting January to be a very bad month, etc., and it hasn't really happened. We've started having sort of partial lockdowns and night curfews and all sorts of things more towards the end of Q1. So now it's not a great time. For example, April was not a wonderful month.
Okay.
But also it wasn't wonderful the previous year when we also had a full lockdown.
Okay.
So yeah, we're comparing, two quite tricky years. But Q1 has fared much better for us. Working from out of office were good.
Yeah. Is there one key reason for that you can point to?
The key reason, we kept improving the product. The product looks very different from previous year. And our improvements have been slowly compounding, as we saw today, and I think David put that very well, very small 1% improvements every week that we follow in our NPS. To me, NPS is sort of the number that rules everything, because it really takes all the feedback from the users and just gives you a rough number. And that has been slowly growing every month. And the fact that it's slowly growing, it shows me that, okay, we're at the right direction, and the money just sort of aligns with the NPS somehow.
Cool. So in order to get this going, I don't know, I'm not sure if he's still here, but I think so. May I point this same question to Burak? So how has your Q1 been? Do you want to share with us maybe, and also tell us a little bit about what you're concentrating on in these days? Is Burak still with us? I hope so. At least I saw him just a minute ago.
Yeah.
I don't think he's with us.
Okay. That's unfortunate. He jumped out. All right. So then I will point it over to Joonas.
Yeah, happy to continue. You can look for the next victim in the participants list, or anybody who can share and can already think. It has been quite good for jobs in Finland. We were actually kind of planning for a slight decrease since the last year. COVID has been around like 15% lower numbers in the end of 2020, but actually Q1 was slightly positive, and that's been a surprise as the comparison number were pre-COVID in the most part. So only March was actually within the COVID period, and even that had the latter half. And we've had actually increasing trend. So January was maybe not as big, but February, March, and even April have been on the rise. So at least in Finland, it seems that the jobs market is recovering, and there is some pent-up demand in the air that now that the recruitments are happening, it's kind of pushing the market. So interesting times.
Good to hear. Congratulations on that. How about Robert Rutkowski? Is he still here? Also jumped out. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, let's see. How about Eric Dahlström? I think, David, Eric, you are with James Edition, luxury marketplace. Is that right? How has your Q1 been? Do you want to share with us?
Hey, sorry, I was on mute here. Unexpected question.
Fantastic. Hi, Eric.
Yeah, so Q1 has actually been quite good, especially compared to Q1 last year, I would say. So overall, I think that we are very much a global marketplace. So we are, of course, focused both on a niche, which is luxury, but also we are present in many markets, so US and Europe and Asia, etc., which I think made us a little bit more resilient actually last year, and we saw quite a lot of growth during last year. I think we are very much focused on real estate, and those who follow the American market, especially when it comes to real estate, have seen kind of the supply shortages and enormous growth there. So that has kind of course, pushed us forward a bit as well. So yeah, overall Q1 has been quite good for us compared to last year, especially.
That's cool. Hey, and what is on your development plan for the next quarters? What are you focusing on these days, coming kind of out of the COVID crisis?
So I would say that, of course, it's very popular to talk about today is the how to enter the transaction. And I think in our niche, especially, trust is a huge issue or driver for growth. So I think we are looking a lot at how we can create a more trusted experience. We are not a transactional marketplace at all today, so we are a classic classifieds platform, which works, but I think creating that transactional experience is one opportunity. Otherwise, convenience, it ties a little bit into the transactional experience, of course. The expectations when it comes to convenience is overall lagging a bit, I would say, in the luxury segment, and also a big opportunity, especially being global, a lot of cross-border transactions, very high value purchases. Like how do you actually make that experience more convenient?
Understood. So you're back into investing into the product and getting things rolling. Claudia Nessler, how about you? Do you want to share with us a little bit what has been your key learning in the pandemic, and what are your plans for the next couple of months?
Well, the key learning most probably was work even harder than before. Well, for everyone, this was quite a big challenge. And we were maybe too optimistic for Q1 when we budgeted. So we had quite high targets to reach, but in the end it worked. So the learning was, even when the situation doesn't look good, it can still turn out good in the end, because maybe middle of March tables turn and it's going really in the right direction now, which makes us very happy. Our plans, well, there is still a lot of insecurity in everything that we do, or a lot of experimenting. In terms of the marketplaces, we are also looking, as everyone, into the transaction, into video, how to implement or how to get more into this virtualization, because I think a lot of the things that happened through the pandemic, like contactless transactions, payment, delivery, and so on, is there to stay. So even if we are now, as everyone, looking forward to the end of the pandemic, I think a lot of these commodities will stay where they are. So we're working on all of these terms, basically.
Understood. You were mentioning work even harder. I was wondering if that is actually possible. On the one hand, and on the other hand, I was wondering, is there one thing that you can point to that has made you at the end also not reach your goals on top of working even harder? Was there this one thing that you figured really helped you to achieve your challenging goals in this year?
Well, we started to implement OKRs middle of last year, and actually that helped a lot, because you get the team even more focused on the common goals, and everybody starts to understand even better the full picture. Like usually you have the sales team focusing on the figures, you have product people focusing on the product, and me focusing on inventory, on the offer and demand side, on everything. And now I think there is a much better understanding, thanks to OKRs, on what the targets of everyone are, because we split it somehow like this. And that helps a lot in achieving all the goals, because people started to see the broader picture.
Well, but that sounds super successful. I mean, if you only started half a year ago and this is already helping you to achieve the goals, that's outstanding. Maybe let me point it back to David. David, how long did it last in your organizations until you saw the first positive aspects? Because I remember you saying it gets harder before it gets better. It seems how do you skip that part?
Yeah, good for you, Claudia. No, I mean, I think that in general, like I guess and also what you kind of mentioned, Mike, when you reflected about the Willhaben experience, like the success can be measured in different ways, right? One is you can measure the success kind of from an employee point of view. Does this drive more engagement? You know, do they feel more empowered, more kind of excited with this? And there you're always going to have some people that are, you know, the champions, and they are super excited about it. And you're going to have others for whom this represents maybe a bigger change, or the circumstances make it hard for them to you know, embrace this way of working. Then you have the results, right? And the actual results, where I think we were fortunate enough that after the full first quarter, we had some good results. Like, of course, it's not about nailing every target, because we set ambitious targets, but we had, you know, the feeling of like, yes, we nailed a few ones of this. That was helpful. That builds in some kind of momentum, and that's kind of like a trick, maybe, like for the first few quarters, you know, try to make it so that you have a few achievable, like a few teams that can really achieve their targets, so that they get that reason to celebrate. Because, you know, we need, especially now in this COVID remote stuff, we need reason to success. So go easy on the ambition level in the beginning. Yeah.
I actually have two quick follow-up questions on this one. So how often do you update your OKRs? Is that on a quarterly or yearly, semi-yearly basis? How often do you do it?
Yeah, so we have we set just like we set the strategy on a yearly level. Like we have a multi-year strategy, but we review it every year. So we have, like, on the company level, like the company OKRs, if you want, they are set at a yearly level, because, like we said, many of those metrics are so slow moving, if you want, right, and require, you know, multi-quarter efforts and initiatives to really move. So we set it on a company level on a yearly basis. Of course, we try to be agile, and if we see that, you know, the market has changed, the competitive situation has changed, yeah, maybe we make some adjustments, right? But we try to keep that stable over the year, and then the teams update their OKRs every quarter. But ideally, you know, it's more about evolution, right? They might drop a few things, add a few things, so there's some continuity. But yeah, we try to be agile there. Yeah.
And then what did you do last year when you figured out that there was a global pandemic out there? Did you leave the OKRs unchanged, or did you throw everything out the window and start over again?
Yeah, it's a good question. We had it in, let's say, this was at that point I was still in Adevinta, right? And there, let me think how how we acted there. I mean, there was certainly everything got a bit relative, especially the commercial targets, right? There was a big understanding that, right, I think OKRs is about agility, right? And when this situation came up, you know, trying to stick to the plans when everything changes, it's not very agile. And I actually know that some of the marketplaces, they really took this as an opportunity, right? They said, like, okay, you know, the commercial activities go down, so maybe now this is actually an opportunity to double down on the product development and the kind of user-facing improvements. And a lot of marketplaces actually took last year as a kind of a year to catch up on some of those improvements that they had been wanting to do for a long time, because the commercial side was dead anyways for 6 months. So yeah, there was definitely a pivot following the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you think, how should OKRs be managed in the sense of, now that we're in those times where things are obviously changing quite a bit, and I think a lot of us probably had a hard time budgeting this year, not knowing exactly, when are we back to normal? Will we be back to normal? When is third, fourth, or fifth wave coming?
Yes.
So under such circumstances, do you think it still makes sense to set yearly OKRs, or should you, how to deal with that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Well, I think that, maybe, your strategic ambition is probably the same, right? So you should still have clarity on what you want to achieve this year, right? But maybe where you want to build in some kind of slack is the targets, right? And say that, yeah, we aim to grow 30%, but we're not going to fool anyone. This might end up being 10 or 50. We don't really know, right? So I would say that stick with the action objectives because it's or articulation of the strategy. But yeah, be humble when it comes to your ability on moving the metrics, right? Because there's going to be a lot of stuff moving in the market that is outside of the team's control as well, right? So yeah, I would say be quite flexible on this.
Yeah, totally. I can very much relate to that. So let me maybe point it at this time also at some of our service providers that are with us today. So I don't know, maybe Giuseppe or something. Could you maybe tell us a little bit on how have you guys been doing and going through the pandemic, and what have you guys seen? What have you learned through these interesting times?
I can go if you want. If
Please,
you like.
go ahead.
So, well, we are an escrow provider. So actually, and we are a startup. So actually, the pandemic, paradoxically for us, helped a lot because with more and more transaction having to happen completely online, what we've been discussing, I don't know, 1 or 2 years ago in Istanbul, saying, "Oh, that's a good to go. It's probably the future." All of a sudden, got like pressed out, and actually was the new reality. So that was that's absolutely, sorry to say that, but for us, it was basically actually a great timing for that.
Can imagine.
And so essentially now escrow is actually on, I would say, either on the top list or anyway, some project like you, Mike, probably you can prove it as well, on pretty much any marketplace really in every vertical. So we are all here, you are all here like representing either an horizontal or a C2C platform or a B2C platform, a classified, whatever you of course fits in whichever category. But for example, another big segment that is being impacted by this is B2B. There is a absolutely crazy amount of revenue that could be untapped there, and is always been blocked, for example, like Eric said, by the lack of a global infrastructure that can facilitate fast payments in a digital way. So again, we see that as something, probably a lesson that most horizontals and marketplaces in general have learned. That is not pretty much a good to have or like a future that is quite distant, but is actually a priority right now. Because again, as everyone said, probably in these 2 days, the mantra was trust, right? How many people mentioned trust during their presentations? And if you cannot facilitate a safe payment, apart from a safe communication or like preventing scammers and things like that, you are actually absolutely not offering a full digital experience to both buyers and sellers.
I would fully agree to that. Yeah, so thank you very much at this point for this lively discussion. We have come to the end of the official part, almost. We just want to actually do 2 things with you. First of all, I believe we would like to do another poll about finding out if you guys would be ready to come back and go on a physical meeting already in Q3, Q4, or actually Q4. We are in the middle of planning the rest of this year. And of course, we would like to get your opinions and your feeling on how is it going. And a pop-up window should have appeared in your screen. So please let us know, would you feel comfortable with already coming to a physical event in Q4, yes or no? So please give us a quick answer, and then we'll see the result of that really quick. So Lucian, what is your take? Will we have a yes or no?
My take is, I mean, yeah, we saw it yesterday. This is, I mean, a bit cheating. So we saw yesterday 60% said yes. I'm hoping more today. We have a lower base number as we are gearing towards the end. But yeah, I'm rooting for 70% people who say yes, because the people who stay till the end are the ones who I would assume want to meet each other in person. Otherwise, you know, they're gone by now.
Probably. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yes. So it means the 14% got vaccinated last night, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so thank you very much. We'll do our best, at least from our side, to enable a physical meeting if the pandemic situation allows. But definitely, that's of course a good sign. And yeah, I would actually like to, at this point, close the official part of the meeting. And thank you all very much for coming. But please stay with us. We would like to do some additional 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes, depending on your appetite, to just take it a little bit offline and just have a very, very informal session. So of friends and almost a little bit ICMA family now, just chit-chatting. And so I will actually stop my moderation part and just open the floor for anyone who would like to maybe ask a question, tell a story, or maybe the best pandemic joke. So anything is allowed at this point. So thank you very much for tuning in, and please stay with us for a couple of minutes.
So now we go at the bar. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So cheers.
We get to.
Yeah, would be cool if
go ahead, Sangu.
Yeah, could show themselves. Yeah, Davor, I want to see your face. There you
Hi,
are.
Davor.
Hey.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Hi, Ian. Yeah. So it's becoming more human.
Yeah. So this would be the moment that the beer would open at the bar, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, I just want to thank. This was the first time I joined, and I have to say that I'm very impressed and happy with this kind of familiarity, right, in the air, and you guys as moderators, and the kind of vibe and approach. It was really nice. So I certainly hope that we can meet each other in person. So I personally need to pop out now, but I just thanks for inviting me and great moderation, and see you all at the next event, hopefully in person.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
So much.
Good to have you.
Thank you so much for the conference. It's always great to see people, to stay connected.
Yeah.
Even though we are at homes, yeah.
Totally.
I have one question to you guys. Who is back in the office like 100%, or who is preparing to go back to the office in this month or next month or something like that? Can you share something regarding that?
Happy to share on the Rome side, and then I'm going to hop out. So most of our markets have been in a fluctuation. So every country is treated differently. The South African office was closed for a period of 2 months during our second wave. The Kenyan office was just closed for about a couple of weeks as well. And then staff with private vehicles were able to come in because they just had their third wave. Otherwise, Nigeria is on rotations. Ghana is on rotations, Senegal is on rotations, pretty much everybody's on rotation. So
what do you mean by rotations?
It differs. It actually differs per country in the way in which they're running it. So in Nigeria, we wanted to make sure that our staff were not coming into contact with any public transport. So we didn't want them taking on any more risk than they needed to. So we've actually funded a staff bus. And that staff bus will pick up and drop off every staff member. And then you basically get on rotations based on where you live. So they'll say, for example, like Lagos mainland is the one bus, then it will be from like Lekki Island on a different day. And then we do rotations that way. And then for either nursing mothers or parents who've got very small children that are not in school, then you only have to come in maybe once every 2 weeks or as needed. So we've had a lot.
But the rest of the people, they come in daily pretty much. So yeah.
No, I mean Cape Town.
No.
Cape Town is a ghost town. Yeah, Cape Town's a ghost town because so much of us, I mean, to be fair, almost all the people I speak to every single day are not in this country. So, I mean, you know, like it just happens to be I'm now working from home instead of the office, but I was still on a video call. And then the Kenyan office, everybody seems to just be on levels of rotation. So they'll be coming in at certain times. Yeah, it just depends on what the COVID cases are like at that particular time. So there's a lot more flexibility, but we tried to have a limitation of about 30% of our staff in the office at any time. And that's also with precautions we put in. So Kenya is our biggest office. We have about, we've just expanded. So it's about 120, 130 people now with some working more remotely because they're in a different region. And we've built in giant perspex dividers onto every desk just so that we are being more conscious. Yeah, it took us a little while. Yeah, and that's just so that we can make sure we're keeping people safe. We've got very strict rules in the office. So for example, if you're on a video call and you're sitting in a group area and your mask is off, you get a warning because it's about everybody's safety. So it's just about making sure that we're doing this together, and we've been very lucky. We haven't had any COVID spread in our offices.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any other idea? Any other?
Before we go, I want to thank everybody so much. You've been so welcoming. You know, I also echo the other sentiment of it's been such a great entry into this this wonderful community, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity and being able to hopefully see you again in person in a couple of months' time.
Most welcome.
Oh yes.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye everybody.
Bye.
It's great meeting you. Cheers.
Davor, what do you say? What's going on in Croatia?
Flexibility stays. I think it will be always more flexible than before. Nobody will be 100% in the office ever again.
You think? Because I told my people, everybody 100% back in the office again.
I hope it won't be like